Just waiting for Facebook. I feel like I'm just like a little bobblehead here. I gotta get everything on the go. All right. Awesome. Looks like we're live. Welcome, everyone. All right. Tonight's topic is going to be a good one. We are going to talk about powerlessness versus feeling powerful. And I'm going to start out with a quote from Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love. And I really, really love this quote. So I'm just going to read this here. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel unsure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we consciously give people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So that is from her book, A Return to Love. I read that early in my recovery journey, and it has been a very, very powerful book. So I highly recommend reading that. And when I read that, it reminds me of how growing up in abuse and abusive situations, it's very easy to develop feelings of feeling powerless, that you don't have any control over your life or how things, what things happen to you. And it can be easy to get caught into those situations where you believe that you do not have any power. Because as children, we grew up in situations where we did not have any power over the situation, and we might have developed certain ways of being, certain coping mechanisms in order to feel like we had some sort of power or control over the situation. We might have learned some very unhelpful, or maybe they were helpful in those moments, of being able to survive situations, but then we end up trying to use these in our adult lives, these techniques that we learned as children, and then they become maladaptive, and they become, instead of being the solution, they actually become the problem. And we have to start to learn how to behave in different ways, and that can be a different experience depending on how you learn to cope with the situation in your childhood, right? So for myself, as I've been going through all of this stuff, and I mistakenly made the plan that I wanted to be able to help people. My goal is to be able to help 1 million people heal past trauma by bringing awareness to it and by sharing my experience, strength, and hope of how I've managed to get through things. And the thing is I was living in pretty good situation, and I was like, in some ways, I had been doing so much better than what I grew up in. Yet, there was also this underlying sense of unhappiness. So there's a bit of a catch-22, right? So I made the mistake of saying that I wanted to help these people and do more than just helping people one-on-one, which is what I typically would do. And so God, in his infinite sense of humor, has decided to put me back in the exact situations where I feel that sense of powerlessness again. Because it had been so long since I had really been fully in touch with what that was like. that to go back through this experience again and feeling these particular challenges that I've been going through has actually been very valuable for me to go through this again. And it reminds me of, like, how is it that you actually get through this? How do you actually heal when you feel completely powerless? You feel like you have no control over your situation, your circumstances. People that have way more power than you have complete control over your life, and you feel like you cannot actually escape. And this is the experience that people who are living in traumatic situations often end up experiencing. And one of the main coping mechanisms and how to deal with that is you learn to adapt, you learn to people please, you learn to not want for anything, and this ends up becoming a problem. You keep making yourself smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in order to allow for some sort of control over the situation, over how you're being treated. And that can be a very terrifying experience. And then you can only do that for so long before you actually explode again. And then these feelings come up and then you can't contain them, right? You can't deny those feelings anymore. And then what do you do with those, right? Katie, come on, Katie. Come on, Katie Bear. Hi, baby. Hi. She figures now is the best time to start yelling. She can go all day, no yelling, and this is the best time to start yelling. Right? She's my baby girl. So in going through this process, you're going to have to start to identify, how is it that you coped with your particular situation? How did you deal with the trauma that you were exposed to? And that can be whatever it is. And one of the most dangerous things to do, and I've done this myself, is getting into a comparison game. One of the ways that I used to be able to deny what I went through is, well, it's at least it's not as bad as the other family that's a couple apartments down, right? They, they were experiencing extreme abuse and like violence, and ours was just sexual abuse, so it's not that bad, right? And ours would get fighting, but there weren't black eyes and there weren't broken bones and stuff like that, like the house a couple of doors down, right? So it can be easy to get into that comparison of, well, I didn't have it as bad as this person, therefore it doesn't, we're fine, we're okay, right? So you learn to tell yourself those kind of things without acknowledging what it is that you actually are experiencing. And there can be people that go through worse things than you, and there can be people that go through less things than you and still find it traumatic. But guess what? It is still trauma for them. If it is painful for them, if it is painful for you, that is worth acknowledging. And starting to learn that early in my recovery was actually an important piece, because it can be so easy and we automatically find ways to deny ourselves and what we've experienced because of it's a way of telling ourselves it's not that bad, and it's a way of avoiding our pain. And that is the whole point of denial, right? Don't even know I'm lying. So we lie about what it is that is truly bothering us, which leads us to start to develop behaviors, develop patterns to reinforce those lies, right? Because it's too difficult for us to feel those feelings and to actually process them. And and going through, hi baby. uh, I love this cat. She is one of my rescues. Yeah. So going through this whole process, um, it can be really challenging. And so feeling those feelings, especially when you're going through and you're sifting through a lot of the feelings of the past. Hi, Maya. Yes. Yes, it's my kitty bear. So going through these feelings can be overwhelming. And so one of the first things that you really need to do is make sure that you have tools and mechanisms in place to actually support yourself. And so this is a matter of identifying what are the things that actually bring you comfort, what are the things that actually can help you get through these tough times, that are actually helpful. And you have 2 cats? That's good. I'm from Canada. Where are you from? Maya, right? Is it Maya? Am I saying your name correctly? So now this can differ depending on what area that you're in, of what you actually need for support. Sometimes you need a lot of people around you. Other times you may need more solitude, and that's okay. And understanding where you're at in your journey is really important to be able to give yourself what it is that you need, and that could differ from what other people are doing. And so when you identify those things, one of the questions that I like to ask myself is, how would I, in my normal way of behaving, in the normal way that I've coped through situations. Oh, I'm so sorry that you had to put your kitty down, Luke. Oh, that's so sad. I know it's hard when you lose your fur babies, right? And it's always really hard to make that decision when you actually have to. Yeah, absolutely, Maya. Please follow me. And if you guys are jumping in part way, I do upload the replays on my YouTube channel, Coach Tina B 125, so you can check that out. And I post that in the posts that I do, so the links are there. I know it's hard to click on them in TikTok, but if you just go search Coach Tina B 125 on YouTube, you'll see the replays, and I upload those. So you're going to go through periods of when you're digging up these old emotions. There's no way around this. There's no way around not feeling those uncomfortable, painful feelings. And I wish I could tell you that there was an easier way, but the easiest way is to feel those feelings at the fullest depth, to cry those out. When you're feeling sad, feel those sad feelings. When you're feeling depressed, feel depressed. And by the way, depression is often anger turned inwards. So when you have those kind of feelings, you have to embrace them to the fullest, so that you can actually move through them. They're there as a signal for you that you are ready to feel those feelings, and to go through those. Now, being able to have support, and more importantly than having external support, of you learning the process of becoming your own best support, which means checking in with yourself on a regular basis to understand, what is it that I truly need? So even if the rest of the world is telling you, hey, you should do this, and you're like, but I don't feel like I should do that. Even if you're 100% wrong and you should do that thing that everybody else is saying, the process of you going through and doing the thing that you are being called internally to do is much more valuable than you just following somebody else's advice blindly. Okay? What that is going to do is that is going to start to build courage, it's going to start to build confidence, and it's also going to start to build that muscle within you to start to learn your own internal voice, because as a trauma survivor, you do the world according to everybody else's agenda, everybody else's beliefs, everybody else's way of being, their thought process. And one of the most valuable things that I ever learned in therapy, and it was after I actually got mad at my therapist and I gave her shit, because I had been going to a group therapy thing and I was learning all these new things, and I was like, hey, why didn't you tell me about all this feminist stuff, and why didn't you tell me about empowerment, and why didn't you tell me blah, 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 XYZ, all of these different things. And I was genuinely upset with her. I felt like she was doing a disservice to me. And she did the best thing that I could ever imagine, is she told me, Tina, in this office, you are not here to get my opinions. You are not here to get my beliefs or political beliefs on this, that, or my religious beliefs, my spiritual beliefs. You are not here for that. In this office, we are here to do the world according to you. And that blew me away. And I was like, what? Oh. So my opinion is actually valuable. The way I think is actually valuable. The things that I believe are actually valuable. And the whole lesson here is for me to learn to value my own voice. Because I sure in the hell was not taught that in the environment that I grew up in. And I'm not saying that my parents weren't taught that either and they had to cope in their own way. That's their journey. They are allowed to go through their healing process just the same as I am allowed to go through mine. And this is all a personal journey. And for us to learn the process of what it is that we need to become our own best friend, become our own champion, become our own leader. And that is a really terrifying friggin' process, because as we start to do this, there's going to be people that don't like these changes in us. They're going to be looking at us and they'll be saying, change back. And they may not say that directly. They'll say it in subtle ways. They'll say it in nice ways. They'll say it in nasty ways. Whatever ways that they are uncomfortable, because you changing yourself, you empowering yourself, you starting to believe that you have value is a huge threat. And not because you're a huge threat to them, but because you going through this process will cause them to have to question what are the things that they are not doing that they really want to be doing, that they really need to start changing. What are the things that they are settling for in their own lives? And that's a huge fucking threat. It's a huge threat. And it's not easy process making these changes within ourselves, right? It may require us to let go of things that we thought were going to be in our lives forever. It may require us to admit some things to ourselves that we don't want to admit to ourselves, right? And this can be a really painful process. But the only way for us to learn to become powerful is to face those fears head on. And it isn't the fear of that we're not good enough. If we actually sat with what we are actually capable of, and we fully embrace that, that's actually pretty fucking terrifying, because that means we actually have to stand in our power. That means we have to stand in our own light. And that also made me, we have to look at some things. It's like, fuck, I really made a mess of this shit. I really did not do a good job here. And that's okay. That is actually a wonderful place to be, right? It's actually a wonderful place to be. And it's really, it's painful. It's hard going through this. But it's also very freeing to kind of look at this and kind of go, well, shit, I fucked that up pretty good. Now what? Now what do I need to do? Okay? And this is okay for you to go through this. And it is possible for you to make these changes. It is possible for you to rebuild. It is possible to kind of go, okay, I now understand more. I now understand things better. And it can still be pretty scary to kind of ask ourselves, okay, well, what is it that I want to do different? And can I actually do that? What if I try and I fail and I screw everything all up again? You know, especially when you get to the point where you kind of acknowledge that your current track record is not where it needs to be. And that is okay. Accepting where you are at and still knowing that despite all of your fuck ups, despite all of the mistakes that you've made, that you still deserve to live a better life. You still deserve to live a more rewarding life. Even if everybody else in the world is telling you you don't, that you have messed everything up, that you are a piece of shit and you don't deserve any redemption. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Because the truth is, we all have this light within us. Hey Peter, good to see you. We all have this light within us, and the only thing that the dark can do is cover it up. Hi Mary, good to see you. All that the dark can do is cover it up and make us believe that we are not worthy. They can make us believe that the fears that we have are real, and they are truly false evidence appearing real. And when we believe in those fears, we run. we run and we hide, we avoid those feelings, we find all kinds of creative fucking ways to come up with not being able to feel these things. We dive into alcohol, we dive into drugs, we dive into relationship addictions, food addictions. I like the more complicated ones. Drugs and alcohol, you can remove those from your life, and guess what? You'll live just fine. But no, I like the harder things. No, I like to be addicted to relationships, and I like to be addicted to food, because you cannot live without people and you cannot live without food. So you have to dabble in them and then balance these on a very delicate scale. Hi, Syed from Italy. Nice to see you. Wow, we got people from all over the world here. That's cool. And so learning to balance these things and balance within ourselves, it all begins within ourselves, of finding what it is that we need for ourselves, and that can be really challenging to do. So me, I'm from Canada, I grew up with being James, nice to see you, Massachusetts. Okay, welcome. So I grew up being this high performer, honor roll student, good girl syndrome, Ontario, Canada. So growing up in these kind of environments, it's like my way of coping was to learn to be this high performer, get kudos, get good grades, do all the right things, right? And so you tell me, Saeed, listen and see if you think that I'm a teacher. So as you go through these things, right, you begin to build this identity around this is who you are, right? And this is how you are um, supposed to be, and that you are not allowed to make any mistakes. You're not allowed to say anything wrong, and if you do, then you're highly criticized. And there were very different dynamics that happened in the childhood that I grew up in, right? My brother, he went from like a D grade up to a C, and they like bought him a bike and took him out for dinner, and they were so happy that he improved. And I'm like, and I'd bring home my report card. I had 100% in math and French, and then the other grades were like high B's, A's, right? And with the exception of phys ed. So um, that was the only one. And it's like, I got told, so when are the rest going to be 100%? And I was like, what? And it was a way to kind of bring me down. It was a way because my abuser felt threatened, and I would call him out on certain things. And I also had this whole power dynamic control thing. And his way of controlling me was to criticize me, belittle me, tear me down, make me feel less confident about myself. Why? Because I was technically stronger than him. And even with all of that stuff, guys, please try to ask questions that are actually relevant to the topic. Um, this isn't a dating channel, okay? So, and hobbies and stuff like that, please. If you have questions about trauma or stepping into your power or any of those kind of healing type questions, I would appreciate those and keep it focused on that. If you continue to ask strange questions, I may have to either mute you or block you, okay? So as I was going through these things, right, you know, these start to become part of your identity, right? So, and you don't get a choice when you're a kid of how you react to these situations. You're doing the best that you can, and you make decisions as a child that end up carrying into your decisions as an adult, that you don't realize that this is kind of hard coded into your subconscious, and you're kind of operating on these old paradigms that you don't even realize that you're doing. So when you go to make these changes, it can threaten your system in a huge way, and it brings up this fear, this panic within you that you have to learn to override. And if you don't understand this process, it can be very easy to fall back into old behaviors, old patterns. So like I was saying, this whole process of being in this state of always being this high performer, always having to get results, push myself, drive myself, and anything less than an 80 was an absolute fail. So me learning to heal, learning to recover, taking care of myself is threatening, right? Because that is putting my need above somebody else's belief of what I should be doing. And so if I decide that I need to have a nap because I'm feeling worn down, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling exhausted, or even if it's because of depression, maybe it's because I'm not handling my emotions. I don't give a shit what the reason is. It doesn't matter. If I feel I need to actually do this, and this is the best way to take care of myself in this particular moment, guess fucking what? I'm allowed to do that. I am allowed to do that. And the very act of doing what I need to do for myself, even if other people disagree, even if all of my support network disagrees with that, then that is what I need to do. And that very act of doing that builds that courage, builds that confidence within yourself, even if it's wrong, because guess what? Even if it's wrong, you will learn from it. You will learn from it. And you'll be like, well, shit, that wasn't the best plan. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And you are allowed to screw up as many times as you need to in order for you to get the lesson. Nobody else gets to determine that for you. Nobody else gets to say, oh, you're a slow learner, you're terrible, you don't get this, you're not worth the time, you're not worth the effort, you're not this, you're not that. If other people are saying that, fuck that. Okay? If you are saying this to yourself, that is where the true problem lies. Okay? It's not what other people are saying to us or about us that actually matters. It is what we are telling ourselves. And we tell ourselves daily through our actions whether or not we are actually valuable, whether or not we are actually powerful. And until we actually take those steps to go against what other people think is best for us, we are still operating as a child. That's the thing. Because isn't the very essence of being adult is making our own choices? Taking responsibility for those choices, of course. We get full ownership. See, yes, we get, as an adult, we get to make our own choices, but we also get to earn the consequences of those actions. Now, sometimes those consequences are good because we've made good choices. But when we've made bad choices that don't actually serve our best interest, those are valuable lessons that we need to learn. And to try and deny somebody the value of that lesson is enabling them, and it actually is a threat to their well-being. So when we learn this for ourselves, we can sit beside somebody without trying to fix them, because what we understand is they are not actually broken. They are not actually something that needs to be fixed. They're not a project that needs to be fixed. And the best thing that we can do to help support somebody is sit beside them and remind them just how fucking amazing they actually are. That will get them to do the right thing the fastest. Because when somebody actually believes that they are valuable, that they have worth, they will start operating in a way that they have value, they have worth. And our jobs are for us to find what is the best way for me to feel like I have value and I actually have worth. And that can be a really challenging thing for us to learn when we've grown up environments, or we grew, or even in our young adulthood, we get ourselves into situations where we are treated like we actually don't have any value, that we don't have any worth. And if you get told that stuff enough times, you start to believe the lies. And we start to doubt ourselves of whether or not we do actually have any value. Do I actually have any value? Do I actually have any worth? And when we have that doubt and we allow that doubt to take root in our own minds, we will start to behave in ways to prove that we don't actually have any value, that we don't actually have any worth, that we are not allowed to live the life we deserve to live. And even if we allow that to take root, that is part of our path, that is part of our journey, because we have to look at that, and the value is, and the healing
comes from being able to look at that and say, you know what? Fuck you. I actually do deserve a better life. And most of the time, it's us having to look in the mirror and have that battle with ourselves and say, you know what? I do deserve better. And when we do fully believe that we deserve better, whatever that looks like for us, that's where the healing begins. And that's where the challenges come up to pull us back into the old behaviors. And it's through going through these processes that we have to. You're an executive chef. Okay, great. Great, Syed. I love being able to cook. I love cooking. That's I love to feed people. So that is one of my things, and finding those things that bring joy to your life is part of the healing process, right? So we have to look at the ways we can't control how we were raised and the things that happen to us. We can't change those things. We do have to look at them in the context of, how is this still operating in my day-to-day life? How am I still allowing these things from the past to be my operating system in the present? And then once you identify those things, being able to say, okay, how do I change this? What would be a different response? So if I normally operate and I've always responded in this particular way, what would be doing the complete opposite of that? So, and this differs. This is why it's not a one size fits all, because it depends on how you ended up learning to cope with the trauma that you experienced, okay? And I don't care if you were beaten to the point where you got broken bones, or if you just got ignored and neglected and everything else was given to you, and you think, well, I had a good childhood, like I had a roof over my head, I can't complain, I had food on the table, I had clothes on my back, and I didn't have it that bad. At some level, we all experience trauma. There's nobody that goes through this life that hasn't experienced. And maybe you did have an amazing, perfect, wonderful, amazing childhood, the best parents that gave you everything. You can still experience sadness. You can still experience depression. You can still experience these feelings, because we as children will make decisions based on our level of understanding. And I say, as a child, it's not just little child, like even as adults, we make decisions based on certain information that we have at the time. And as we grow through life, that's when we start to develop and learn more things. We become exposed to more information. And now, if we knew then what we know now, we would probably make different decisions. The thing is now, and we only have the information that we have today to make the decisions that we can based on what we know now. And guess what? Tomorrow we might get new information. Maybe you'll learn something from the conversation that I'm having with you today that you're able to pick up, that you didn't have that awareness before you hopped on this live, right? And you can take something that you learned and you can actually implement it in your life to change it for the better. That's all that we can hope for, is to constantly seek to learn, to find different ways. Can I actually be better? Can I actually improve my life? And what would I need to do? So in some of the things, so example, maybe one of the ways that you learn to protect yourself as a child was to get really angry and aggressive and lash out, and that got you the attention that you needed. Maybe you didn't get the attention you deserved unless you freaked out about something. Maybe you learned to get attention was to not cause any problems, be a people pleaser, whatever way. So somebody who's a people pleaser, one of their ways of having to learn how to heal is learning to speak up, learning to get angry. And that is super uncomfortable. Ask me how I know. So learning to become angry, learning to vocalize, and learning to say, you know what? That shit you're doing to me is not fucking okay. Learning to do that is healing for that person. On the flip side, the person that fucking bitches and moans and complains about every little thing and gets very aggressive, learns their healing journey is learning how to soften, learning how to calm down, not react to everything, right? So wherever you are at, and guess what? You may have to learn the same thing, both dynamics, on different aspects in your life. Maybe at work, you're super good at being able to speak up, say what you need to say, and you need to learn to soften, right? Maybe in your personal life is where you need to speak up. So it can be, you have to learn different aspects of the same lesson in different environments, in different situations. Maybe you're great with speaking up with your coworkers, and you're not so good with speaking up with your friends or your spouse or your relatives. And you let a lot of things slide, and then you let anger and resentment build, and then you end up blowing up and snapping. So pay attention to what areas of your life need certain things that you need to learn. I got a tickle. Because here's the thing, guys. No human being is one-dimensional. We like to try and find specific labels, and we like to categorize people and put them in little boxes because it helps us say, okay, well, this person is a narcissist and this person is an empath. We are all capable of all areas of the spectrum of being, right? And it's a sliding scale. Hey, Wayne. It's a sliding scale of how you end up interacting with people, interacting with yourself, and given certain variables, you may behave completely different in one situation in another. And it's about learning to embrace. I'm doing great today, Wayne. How about yourself? It's learning to embrace the full spectrum of who you are in any given circumstance. We are not static beings. We are not one-dimensional. We are not supposed to just be one way. There's so much more to us, and being able to be okay with the various dynamics of who we are and learning to improve those as best we can in real time is how we actually heal. This is how we bring that healing energy to ourselves, and learning that everything is either an expression of or a cry for love, right? I just got off work 6 this morning until 10 in the night. Yeah. Long day. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you were able to hop on. So as you're going through these things, learning to understand exactly what it is that you need, and to recognize if you are not operating as your best self, right? Then really understanding that you are crying out for love in that moment. If you're acting like an ass, if you're getting short-tempered, if you're getting irritable, you're becoming unreasonable, just know that you're going through a lot, And you actually need to give yourself the love and attention and care that you would give to somebody that was your best friend or somebody that you really loved and cared for. And start to treat yourself in the way that you deserve to be treated. So, example, I was going through a rough time earlier today. I was feeling down, I was feeling uncertain, I was feeling a lot of doubt, insecurity, all of this kind of stuff. And I was getting short-tempered with the cat. The cat, and see, that's the thing, is other people, other animals especially, they'll pick up your energy, and they seem to know when you're in this agitated state, and then they start to act out, and they are picking up your energy. So they're picking up this fearful energy, and they start crying out, they start doing this. And I see my freaking cats do this all the time. And it's always at the time where I'm feeling most vulnerable. I'm feeling easily irritated and agitated. And then I have to realize, I'm like, okay, if, like, I do the best, like, I don't lose it, like, no, I'll say things to a cat that I wouldn't say to a child, but it's like, I'll tell my cat he's being a pain in the ass. I wouldn't do that to a child. But you feel this within you, and it's like, I realize I'm getting irritated, and I'm trying to give him a timeout. I put him in another room, I picked him up, I tried to cuddle him, and I realized, I'm like, okay, I'm actually the one who actually needs this love and support, and I'm trying to give it to this cat. And I realized, I'm like, you know what? I need a timeout. I need a nap. So I threw the fireplace on, I grabbed a blanket, I put the chair back, and I kicked back, and I had a nap. And I felt guilty for giving myself that. But what I realized is, after I woke up, I'm like, oh, I'm not irritable anymore. I'm not cranky. I actually feel better. I feel happier. I don't have to work so hard to be patient or understanding. And guess what? The cat's not fucking yelling anymore. So having to go through this and do this, and then also process those feelings of guilt for taking care of myself. That's really hard, because it's like all of this stuff kicks in of like, oh, I should be working harder, I should be pushing more, especially right now. It's like, I need to do this. And it's like, no, when you're going through the healing process, the stuff that you're trying to push yourself through actually becomes harder. And I know at some point, something's gonna, the universe, God, whatever's gonna fucking tag this video and remind me to listen to my own words, because that's kind of how it does. It's funny, when I was early in my recovery and I started to set boundaries, that was a whole new thing. And I started to learn to call people out when they were being sarcastic with me. They were being giving me digs about stuff. And what I tried to do was shorten the time that I would call those things out. Because, not because I was doing it out of reaction, but I was starting to become aware of, it's like, hey, you just said something to me that didn't make me feel very good. And so what I would do is I would call them out on it. And so this was a friend that I worked with, and I'd be like, hey, you just did this and I don't like this, and don't do that to me again. The funny thing is the very next day, I would turn around and do the same thing to her. And so now, because I set the standard and I actually set the boundary, she set the boundary with me the next day, and I went, hey, jackass, don't fucking do that to me. You just told me yesterday I wasn't allowed to do it to you, and then you turned around and did it to me the next day. So this is what's funny, right? So, but that's okay, right? So I was actually grateful that she did that, and I looked at it and I went, yeah, you're right, sorry. So because of that, it becomes something that is, it doesn't have to be a big thing. And it's understanding, having patience with each other, and understanding that we're all human, we all make mistakes, and most of the time people are not doing this out of deliberately going out of their way to harm you. Now, there are some people that do, and they have a lot of pain that they need to process. Um, but the majority of the time, we are just doing life, right? We're just doing the thing, and we can unintentionally harm somebody, and it's up to us to be able to speak up when something is bothering us, and then have that conversation, have that dialogue to work through those things. And when you can do that, this is where you start to feel more powerful. Hello, Dylan, welcome. Um, you can, instead of feeling powerless over the things that are happening to us and feeling like we don't have any control, starting to speak up about those things, starting to set those boundaries or call out those things and do what it is that we need to do to allow ourselves to feel like, hey, we do have some power in the situation, we do have control over this, and even if the very next day they call you out on the same shit that you just called them out on, that's okay, because that is allowing them to have that same power. So if you want that for yourself, you also have to give that to others, right? So the whole process of speaking up about these things, it doesn't have to be a power struggle. It can kind of be like, oh yeah, you're right, I did do that. Okay, I'll be more aware of that, more cognizant of it. And this is a good thing of having this back and forth, right? And learning that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and it doesn't have to be you against them. It is a collaboration rather than a competition. Hey Esker, good to see you. So having the collaboration and being able to work things out and having an understanding, knowing that the very next day you may do the exact same shit to them that you told them not to do to you, is okay, right? We are all capable of great love. We're also capable of acting out in our fear and hurting people, right? And I think the majority of the people are good people, that they are not intentionally trying to harm somebody else. And if you do catch yourself in that, just know that you can't hurt somebody else without hurting yourself. And so while I may unintentionally harm people, and I keep, as much as possible, I keep it to that as an unintentional one, usually by not being aware of my own fears and how they are playing out. When I become aware of them, then I focus on removing those fears. I focus on removing any hate from my heart, including the hate for myself. That's the hardest one to see, right? Because we have these patterns that get so ingrained with what we grew up with, what we've been told throughout our lives, that we're not good enough, that we don't measure up. And this is taught to us in so many different ways. And when we start to learn to value ourselves, that's when the healing takes place. And that is what requires the courage, because other people are going to be threatened by that, even if you're not trying to harm them. They're going to be threatened by that. They're going to want you to change back to your old way, because when you change and you start to value yourself, it gives them permission to start to value themselves, right? Oh, thank you for follow. Thank you for the follow. So this is where we start to embrace our power, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with embracing that light and embracing that power, that we have to start to look at those fears and removing those fears because they're not real anyway. Yeah, nice to meet you as well. And so, and once we become aware of this, we can't unsee it. That's the thing. That's the thing that's really hard, and it gets really, really freaking challenging because we know that everything that we see in somebody else is within us. And, you know, I've heard the saying, if you spot it, you've got it. So that works for both the good things and the negative things. So one of the tricks that I like to do is, and this came accidentally. So early in my healing journey, I was really upset with a friend. I was really resentful about something, and I got extremely critical of her. Now, I didn't say this to her face. I didn't say any of those things because I didn't want to be harmful. I knew enough not to do that. But carrying that energy within you, carrying that thought process within you, it's a good thing, okay? So it's a good thing in being able to recognize that, okay? So these secret resentments, these secret criticisms, these secret angers that we have that are stored within us, what they end up doing is those start to come up to the surface, and these people come into our lives to irritate us, to show us what's still in us that needs to come out, that needs to be healed, that needs to be removed from our energy. And this can be really, really challenging to see, right? Really challenging to face that darkness within ourselves, and to extend the love that we need to that darkness, to bring light to that darkness within us, to dissipate the darkness, because it's not real anyway. And this is really, really challenging, but when I went through this whole exercise, I wrote out all of the things that I was thinking, all of the negative criticisms that I had, all of the nasty stuff that I would never say to another person's face. But I was still feeling it, and I was still thinking it. And that still has power, that still has energy over us when that stuff is in our minds and in our hearts. So writing all of this stuff was a way for me to purge that out of my system. And as I was going through that writing exercise, one of the things that was very interesting that happened is that it switched from me belittling her, and I didn't realize it, that I had switched over to I statements. And that was such a powerful lesson for me, because what ended up happening was I realized that all of those negative things that I was thinking about her were actually judgments I had against myself, and all criticisms I had against myself that were anchored in from the past, from the abuse that I had experienced. So multiple layers of lessons came up from that. Of one, we pick up where our abusers leave off. That we were told those things so often, so frequently, or at such an early age that we didn't know any different, and that coding, that programming was put into us of a belief that is created for us. Excuse me. So, without us realizing it, we will continue those patterns. We will continue that operating system of those negative criticisms that are put in on us. And in order to break those generational curses, because those things were taught to them, or those were survival mechanisms that were taught from the previous generation of how to operate, that they learn to behave in those particular ways. Don't speak up because maybe they got beaten as a child. Maybe they got belittled or criticized or taught certain things. And I'm not saying that to minimize what you experienced. You absolutely must feel the pain of what you went through. And you can have all the logical understanding that you want of what your parents maybe went through, what they experienced, and you can say, yeah, but they had it much harder than me. Fair enough. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not true. Whatever the situation, and we can try to improve on what they did. And we can work towards those kind of things. But just know that even with all of the things that we try to improve, every generation tries to improve on what they experienced, right? Maybe one parent, they grew up with like hippie parents and they were like too loose, too free, and that child grows up wishing they had more structure. So they implement more structure in their life and they have all of those kind of things. And then their children grow up wishing they had less structure. And it's a pendulum swing that, you know, we find balance on the way. So we can improve the situation generation after generation. We can improve the things that were done and finding what works for us. And just know that whatever path that we choose to do, that we will still make mistakes and that next generation will improve upon that. Okay? So there's no absolutes, guys. There's no absolutes. We can improve, we can do better, we can find the track to express the best love that we can. And however that comes up for us is the best way that we can do for today. And maybe tomorrow we will find out new information that may change our mind. That doesn't mean that we're inauthentic or that we're an imposter. It means that we now have new information, and with this new information that we didn't know yesterday, we can make a better decision today. And maybe that's, you know, a few hours from now, or, you know, a week from now, a month from now. Whatever that is, it's a matter of being kind with ourselves first, because if we're not kind with ourselves, we cannot be kind with others. So being kind with ourselves first, and giving ourselves what is it that we actually need. And maybe we'll give ourselves something and we kind of go, you know, I think I need this. And then the next day we kind of go, yeah, that was probably a bad idea, right? So it's okay for us to make those mistakes, and it's a matter of, are we learning from those mistakes? Are we getting better? Are we better able to tell when we are doing something because we want somebody else's approval, or are we doing something to self-sabotage? Are we doing something because we're afraid and we were in denial about being afraid of something? Seek to understand. Seek within ourselves to understand, why are we doing the things that we're doing? Are we okay with those decisions? Sometimes, hey, you know what? Yeah, I am totally doing it to get that person's approval. Why? Because that person is fucking important to me. And I really care about what they think. And when I am around them, I feel amazing. And that's okay. That is fitting in with that group, that network, that family, that company that you want to work for. Whatever it is, like, if those values align, then that's okay. And if that serves you and that helps you be the best version of you, then that is okay, right? And if somewhere down the line you decide that that's no longer the path that you want to go down, that you thought that you wanted that, and then you change because now you have new information, that just means you've grown to a new level. There's new things that you need to learn, and that's okay. Okay? So we are all meant to go through different phases, different growth periods in our lives. Sometimes we need more isolation. Sometimes we need more community. And whatever area that you are going through is exactly the area that you need to go through for that period of time. And listen to the calling of when you are called to move to a new phase. We can't do that if we're completely externally focused. And learning to listen to that inner voice, even if it leads you down the wrong track, I can promise you, you will learn your most valuable lessons by the things you fuck up in life. Ask me how I know, right? This whole journey is about becoming at more peace with ourselves, with each other, and with God, with love, with understanding. Removing that fear that doesn't belong, that isn't real to begin with. Okay? And this applies in all aspects of your life. All aspects. This isn't crunchy granola stuff. This is very actual, binary, logical, almost computer programming kind of stuff that applies to areas of business as well. And so tonight was much more of a personal explanation and understanding and what I've shared here. Other times I may share more on the business side of things. And that was one of the challenges. It's like I have the biggest challenge of which direction do I take my coaching, because on one hand I really, really love this business aspect of things, and I've been able to do a lot of great things in a business environment because of these skills that I bring, that I practice, that have allowed for greater teamwork, greater collaboration, greater relationship with vendors, with customers, with suppliers, all of those kind of things, because of these thought processes and philosophies that I operate my life in. And I've been able to have really good relationships as well because of these things. I've also had to pull away from relationships. I hate doing that, but it's not because I'm pulling away from anybody that I don't feel that they are good enough. It is because I need this energy for myself right now, because I was a dumbass and decided I wanted to help a million people heal past trauma, because to me, this is the most valuable thing that you can ever experience. To finally find that peace that is holding you back in life from whatever it is that you're experiencing in life. To find that one piece that is holding you back, that prevents you from moving forward, that keeps you in this state of fear and anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, any of those things, and you finally find that missing piece and you put it into place, and now the freedom, the feeling, the love, the joy, the happiness that you experience from breaking through that is worth everything. And so if I can share something with you that I've experienced and that resonates with you, and that allows you to go, you know what, I'm going to try what this fucking crazy lady on the internet is saying. I'm just going to try it. Because don't take me at face value, because I never took anything at face value. I tried to prove everything wrong. So when everybody tried to present this stuff to me, I fought it tooth and nail. It's kind of my process of how I operate. Um, and I had to prove it for myself. And through doing so, nothing has anchored that in more than, well, shit, this actually works. So please, try this stuff to prove me wrong. Take it serious, implement it, and come back and please tell me that this did not work for you. Okay? Please. I invite you to do that, because that's how I got into this stuff. And up until now, I've kept most of it to myself. I would share one-on-one with people, but now I'm sharing it on a broader platform. I do the TikTok lives, I do the Facebook lives, and then I upload the videos to YouTube. Eventually, I'll get to the point where I'll probably get the systems and the tech in place to stream live on Instagram and YouTube at the same time. And I'll probably have better cameras and lighting, and I know this is pretty janky, and I'll probably look back on this and go, oh my god. But until then, I'm showing up as best I can in the best way I know how, just for today. And hopefully you guys are getting something from this, that you find it valuable. And I would love to know your experience with it. Until then, I will keep broadcasting this. And as I find my footing, as I find my way, I will go where I'm led, where I'm directed, and surrender to this process. And in the meantime, hopefully, help a few people along the way. Okay? So guys, I will be back on tomorrow night. I have changed the time to an 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time start time. Well, ish. I still am very time challenged. Eventually, I will get better at that. But for me, it's much more important. If I'm delayed, it's because I need that extra time to ground myself. And so that allows me to show up in a better way. So if I need that extra time, I take that extra time. That's much more important to give you a quality message than to, oh, I have to jump on just because it's this time. Now, if I was doing an event, or if I was speaking at an event or something like that, obviously I'm gonna fucking show up on time. I'm not an idiot. But this is my rodeo, so I get to adjust it as needed. So I'm glad that you guys were able to join me. I will be back on tomorrow night. Check out my YouTube channel, Coach Tina B125. That's where I will be uploading the recording. And thank you for the questions, the comments. And Wayne, if you want to get to know me some more, keep showing up, come back, and enjoy the lives and interact with me. Okay? Talk to you guys later. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.